first podcast we did was absolutely awesome. It's all about your work that you did with Jim Penniston and the story of the Rendlesham Forest UFO event.
Yeah.
And for anybody that hasn't gone back and watched that first episode, I highly recommend you go watch podcast number 1 I did with Gary on decoding the Rendlesham Forest incident, which is an ongoing story here because we're going to be talking more about what came out of that event and the binary code that was transmitted to Jim Penniston. And we're not going to go all the way into the UFO event that happened there in 1980. You can go back and watch podcast 1. We did a pretty in-depth conversation about that. But let's do a kind of a reintroduction for you, Gary. I just want to give a quick intro for you, and then we'll start getting going here. So Gary Osborn is a researcher, author, known for his thought-provoking work on ancient knowledge, symbolism, consciousness, ancient sites. His writings explore the intersection of science, mysticism, esoteric texts, often focusing on hidden meanings behind the sacred architecture. He's the co-author of The Shining Ones, The Giza Prophecy, The Rendlesham Enigma, Book 1 Timeline. And Gary is bringing his multidisciplinary approach to unraveling some of these amazing mysteries, one of which we're going to talk about today. Gary, did I leave anything out there?
No, I just want to say that we're going to be doing a series of interviews. And with this first one, it doesn't seem there's much that's being divulged here. But the thing is, the point is, it shows there was an intent behind this code. It's credible. Yeah, it's mapping. And that's the main thing. A lot of people have dismissed the code thinking that it was hoaxed by Jim Penniston. We've gone beyond that now.
Yeah. And we talked.
No way he could have done this. He wouldn't even have had the patience.
Yeah. And I think we talked extensively about that in our first interview that we did. And I think we're beyond that now. And now it's more about just the information that comes out of that event. And I've thought about this a lot lately. A lot of UFO stories are really just stories. They're campfire stories that you tell to think about something. But rarely is there any sort of extra information that comes out of an event. This is one of the rare cases where not only is the case extremely credible with highly credentialed individuals, but you have this extra sort of bonus bit of information that came out of the main witness, which was the binary code. We're going to get back into that today. We ended podcast 1 with the binary code. Let's dig right into this here. And let's go to the first. Hey guys, if you've been watching this podcast for a while, then you already know. I'm absolutely fascinated by the crop circle phenomenon. It's one of those mysteries that keeps pulling me in deeper the more I explore it. That's why I'm really excited about a collaboration between shapesofwisdom.com and Curious Dimension Podcast. Shapes of Wisdom is a sanctuary for seekers of ancient knowledge and sacred symbolism. They've curated an inspiring collection of sacred geometry and esoteric art that aligns beautifully with the themes we often explore here on Curious Dimension. On their website, shapesofwisdom.com, you'll find thousands of different crop circle designs. Yes, thousands. Available on posters, t-shirts, jewelry, even coloring books. Whether you're into meditative art, symbolic meaning, or just want to surround yourself with something a little otherworldly, it's an amazing resource. Shapes of Wisdom and Curious Dimension have come up with 4 different t-shirt designs that invite you to explore the unknown and wear your curiosity proudly. And as a special thank you to our listeners, you can get 15% off your Curious Dimension t-shirts and Shapes of Wisdom apparel clothing purchases by using the promo code Curious1 at checkout. That's CURIOUS1 at checkout. Plus, if you're into digital art or want access to some of the most stunning crop circle visuals, use promo code Curious2 for 40% off the crop circle collections and big picture digital files available through the Curious Dimension link on shapesofwisdom.com. I'll drop all the links and codes in the description below so you don't miss a thing. So if you're drawn to sacred geometry, ancient symbols, or just want to wear your curiosity, go check them out. Again, that's shapesofwisdom.com. Now let's dive back into today's episode.
I'm quite embarrassed. I've been spending over 14 years now. And even though the first book came out, everybody's been asking where the second book is. And there's just so much information. I still keep finding things. It just takes a lot of time to document everything. and I'm trying my hardest to get this book completed. But yeah, I think what we'll do is we'll have several interviews where we just go through it all as much as we can.
Yeah. And so
just to show people that there is something, it's credible.
Yeah, and I think it's important that we go through it with a fine-tooth comb, but obviously there's so much information that's come out of this that doing it all in one podcast would be too much. And so we're gonna slice this up into chunks, but each chunk is gonna be mind-blowing and just an amazing wild ride into what you have uncovered here with the code that was essentially given to Staff Sergeant Jim Penniston back in 1980. So this is the code we're looking at right now on the screen.
Yeah, that's the message. That's the full message.
The full message, coordinates, and some verbiage in there. So we have exploration of humanity, 666, 8100. And then we go to the first set of coordinates, which is High Brazil, which is this mythological place off the coast of Ireland, apparently, correct?
Yeah, and people pronounce it High Brazil, but the Irish would pronounce it High Brazil. And it was the homeland of the mythical beings named the Giza Diagonal, and who were fairy folk, and that was their homeland. And it's submerged now. But as you said, there are satellite images that show that there was something just under the surface there. And every now and then it will emerge, and then it will sink down again. Yeah, that's in the region of those coordinates, and those coordinates are given twice in the message at the end, and it says origin. Where those coordinates come up at the end, it says origin. And origin.
Right. This was all derived out of the 1s and 0 binary code.
Yeah,
that was given to Staff Sergeant Jim Penniston on early in the morning, December 26, 1980. And then we covered all that in podcast 1. We're not going to go there again. But then we have some more verbiage, continuous for planetary advance, 4th coordinate, continuous sequence probe 4, and then we have 6 more sets of coordinates here. So we've got Caracol, Belize, Sedona, Arizona, Giza, Egypt, which is what we're going to focus on today.
Yeah.
Got Nazca lines in Peru, which I know you've been working on that site as well. There's some mind-blowing stuff coming out of that area. We have Taishan, China, and then we have Naxos, Greece. And then the next bit of verbiage is eyes of your eye. And then again, like you said, High Brazil comes up again. It's listed twice. And then we have origin year 8100.
And that year 8100 is got to be in the future. Other is actually in the future. It's not in the past. Yeah, and it was. I just should say that it was deciphered by Joe Luciano in 2012, and then
binary code was
done. He made some additional kind of finds in 2022.
Okay, so this is the full code. Again, we're going to be talking about the Giza coordinates, but we should probably just show everybody this slide here. This is all the different coordinates all over the world spread out on this 2D map. So
yeah, there's 7 sets of coordinates. There's 4 sort of west of the Greenwich Meridian and 3 to the east. What happened when Jim Penniston sent me the coordinates, which was on 2nd of February 2011, and he asked me to see what I could find. Give it your best shot. See what you can find with these coordinates. I went on Google Earth, and it was dramatic to see the cursor moving across the planet to all these ancient sites. It was mostly pyramids, sacred mounds, and Taishan, sacred mountain. But I wanted to see what they looked like, all on a flat map projection, Mercator projection of the Earth, so I could see them at the same time. And then the initial information that came out, I was connecting them with these lines, and they actually draw up an image of the Great Pyramid, a line to the Greenwich Meridian and equator. But that's not what we're going to be looking at today. That is something that
we'll get to that. We'll get to that in another podcast for sure.
But that in itself showed that there was intent behind this.
Oh, absolutely.
Not just all right.
So today we're focusing on Giza coordinates. And so we've highlighted those here. And you can see that Gary has taken an aerial shot here of the Giza Plateau, and we have the Giza coordinates marked on the Giza Plateau. So this is a nondescript location on the Giza Plateau, correct?
Yeah. I mean, anyone looking at that and say, why is it there? Why is that location being targeted there between the pyramids? Why wasn't it targeting the Great Pyramids, the Great Pyramid or the Sphinx? But anyway, this shows the layout, the aerial view of Giza. I've marked each of the pyramids. I've not called them Khufu, Khafre, or Menkaure. That's the Egyptologist's view. Their theory, these were built or ordered to be built by pharaohs who was using them as their tombs. And after working on this code and what it's revealed to me, that isn't the case.
No.
This is,
it's obvious that this was a layout, a site plan.
More objective research, you will just call them G1, G2, and G3. And then you have these two sets of three pyramids, subsidiary pyramids, that the Egyptologists would say were built for the queens of the pharaohs and the mother of Khufu, I think one of them. But yeah, what the code is telling us is that these two sets of three pyramids relate to the three belt stars of Orion, like the three major pyramids. But we'll get onto that.
Yeah, and we should probably cite Robert Bauval's work, and then of course your work in the Giza Prophecy that you did with Scott Crichton. Amazing.
Yeah, Robert Bauval became a friend of mine. We were talking a lot. We discussed a lot of things over Skype. Yeah, Robert Bauval's theory. Thing is, with Robert Bauval, his Orion correlation theory, he first came to that. He first observed three belt stars and see how they relate to the three pyramids, Giza. And he discovered that in 1983. And what the code is telling us is it tells us about the Giza correlation theory. It refers to things that relate to the Giza correlation. Robert's, but the code was delivered to Jim Penniston 3 years before Robert Bauval discovered that, and it all became a media sensation. So there's your first time anomaly with this code that predicted what Robert Bauval would discover 3 years later.
Yeah. And as we'll get into it, you'll probably unleash some more time anomalies that are riddled in this little journey you've taken. So anyway, we have our nondescript location, and then tell us what you did here, because this is all your work.
Yeah. So anyone looking at that would think, oh, there's a treasure buried there. That's what they usually think. Oh, it must be treasure buried under there, or maybe a UFO's buried under there or something, something.
And so you took this draft line and you connected the west face of G1, the middle of the west face of G1 to the middle of the north face of G2.
Yeah,
correct?
I drew that line just to see why those coordinates were in that location. And I found that the coordinates were sitting on that line, directly on that line. And I thought, wow,
well, that's interesting. And so then you go.
So I started drawing the lines between the pyramids. I started drawing up the lines between the pyramids to find a center point between them. And then you got the center point. This looks like a crosshair, targeting crosshair.
So you're taking logical process. Okay, let's see if it's on this line here. That's interesting. Let's draw a line over here. And then, so now you have a target. You have 2 points you can draw a line through.
I mean, anyone looking at this, the logical step they would take is, what if we draw a line between the Giza coordinates to that center point? What would happen if we did that? So
okay.
That's the thing I did. And I found that the coordinates to that center point and discovered, and there's a close-up image. Which one is a close-up image? I discovered that distance, the ground length distance between the Giza coordinates and that center point is exactly 81 meters.
Exactly, on the nose.
Yeah.
And we should probably...
81. And the number 81 relates to... Yeah, go on, sorry.
No, you're good. You go.
Yeah, I was saying that the number 81 relates to numbers that pop up when you're researching into the measurements between the pyramids. And so the 81 is significant.
Okay. Do you want to tell people about how accurate the Vincente calculator is that you're using to get these distances?
Yeah, the tools I was using to decipher all this, decipher what we find with these coordinates, I used the Vincenzi distance calculator, which is accurate to 0.5 millimeter. Yeah. Between two sets of coordinates, it will give you the distance, within 0.5 millimeter.
And so you're getting 81 meters on the nose.
Yeah. Also using, because there's something else that we should discuss, and that is the African plate on which Giza is situated. The tectonic plate motion of the African plate, it moved in a northeast direction, 51.46 degrees in the northeast direction, 2.15 centimeters a year. That's the velocity. So you've got to take all that into consideration, which means when you discover these coordinates, Giza, you realize that every year that they will change. Yeah, the last number change or the last number change. And so I had to take that into consideration, that the African plate and Giza on the African plate is moving in a northeast direction all the time. And that's been consistent over the last 100 million years. So whenever you see coordinates given to the Giza pyramids, the Great Pyramid in particular, you realize that those coordinates are not accurate because it's always moving. Landmass is always moving north. And the Greek coordinates of the planet remain fixed. So as the land is moving in a northeast direction, the coordinates will change. Yeah. And so over 10 years, it'd be quite a distance. It'd be about 0.5 meter. But that has an impact on the coordinates.
So the coordinates that we're looking here were from 1980, correct? When the code was
I need to explain that. Because the code originates from 1980, the Giza coordinates would relate to 1980. So when I discovered the coordinates to the Great Pyramid, which Manu Safsadeh determined through the surveys done by Glenn Dash, when he gave me the coordinates to the Great Pyramid in 2018, because that's when he works it out, I was able to project those coordinates back to 1980 using the Vincenzi distance calculator. And I knew, because the code required that we would do that, because when you do that and you find these coordinates from 1980, it leads to information that's very significant. We've discussed this before, about fine structure constant coming up in the code, and that's all related to that. So I had to project those coordinates back to 1980. All what came out of the code made sense.
Okay. So everything we're looking at now, all the longitudes and latitudes, this is all based on information from 1980. And so you now have your new coordinates. You know that it's exactly 81 meters. So what's the next logical step here? What did you do?
You extend that line to see where it goes.
You extend it to?
And it goes all the way to the Sphinx.
Okay.
And it actually ends. I found out that it ends on point of the Sphinx where the left forepaw kind of joins the chest, shoulder. Yeah, and that heading is important. Heading is 115.41 degrees azimuth. And azimuth angles they relate to the curvature.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And in a later podcast, we'll talk about what happens when you go the other way on that line. But for today, that's where it goes, ends sort of over the Sphinx, over that.
I was able to work out the actual point where it ends on the Sphinx.
Okay, we're going to get to that. So let's talk about if you were to look at the Sphinx here. Can you tell me what's going on here?
Yeah, you just go back to the other slide.
Yeah, sure.
That line from the Giza coordinates to the Sphinx, found out that line is the path of the sun when it sets on the evening of the summer solstice.
Okay.
So anybody who's standing in front of the Sphinx looking towards the northwest would see the sun setting between the two pyramids. Okay, so that's the path of the sun. And that is another important point about this line. Yeah. It's got context.
Okay. So on the summer solstice, you could stand here in front of the Sphinx and this would be kind of the view you would be looking at.
Yeah. That's the sun setting in the west between the two pyramids. And in the ancient Egyptian law, the west was seen as the land of the dead. And the east was seen as birth and rebirth, with the sun rising in the east. Or rebirth.
Okay. And so people would probably gather. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. and setting in the west would be it's. But there seems to be a reason why they called it the land of the dead towards the west, and get to that.
Okay. And so people could gather at the Sphinx temple and witness this on the summer solstice.
Yeah, the next slide will show that, I think.
Okay. All right.
So Glenn Dash, who surveyed the Great Pyramid, called the Glenn Dash Foundation, they surveyed not only the Great Pyramid, the whole layout of the Giza Plateau. And he theorized that if you stand at the back of the Sphinx temple, which is now in ruins, but if you stood at the back of the Sphinx temple, and he called it observation point 2, there's certain observation points again.
Okay. Yep.
You stand at the back of the Sphinx temple, looking towards the northwest, you'll see the phenomenon of the sun setting between the two pyramids. Exactly.
Okay. And,
and that's that line. That's that line from the
Giza coordinates
of the Sphinx. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else you want to say on this slide?
Just saying that whoever devised the code and chose the Giza coordinates, chose them meticulously and made sure that it would bring our attention to that line of the path of the sun.
Okay. All right. Let's keep going. All right. So now I'm getting into some more of the meat of what you've done here. So you took a latitude that goes through G1 and you make a line perpendicular down to where it intersects this line coming from the Giza coordinates. And that's exactly 100 or 820 royal cubits, correct?
Yeah, there's a few factors here that give you the end point of that line.
Okay.
So I measured down from the center of the Great Pyramid, ground level center of the pyramid, to the Sphinx, where that line ends. That's 3 factors. It's 820 royal cubits exactly. For integer, 820 royal cubits, 820 royal cubits from the center of the Great Pyramid to that latitude. Okay.
Yep.
And that's where the line ends, on that latitude. Mm-hmm. And it ends at exactly 658.368 meters.
Okay. So that's the distance from the Giza coordinates to that exact point at the Sphinx. And we know that there's some sort of void under the Sphinx. Anyway, there's multiple voids under.
Yeah, well, this is what this leads to. It's leading to a specific location under the left forepaw of the Sphinx. When it joins the chest, it seems to be an entrance to some sort of underground chamber, or where
they've done GPR there, ground penetrating radar. They've confirmed.
Yeah, Dr. Robert Schock and Dr. Thomas Debunking in 1991, they used seismic tomography scanning, and they found these voids under the Sphinx. That was where that point is, where that line leads. Was one of these voids, but we're going to get onto that later. We're getting ahead of ourselves. But what I wanted to say is that the distance of 658.368 meters is very important. It's significant. It's got context. 658.368 meters is 10 times the height of the Pyramid of the Sun, Teotihuacan in
Mexico.
Yeah. So that number is important because it's 216 royal cubit. Oh, sorry. 216 meters is the height of the Pyramid of the Sun.
Okay.
That works out 65.8368 meters.
Okay, so that's pretty close.
So that's 10 times, that distance is 10 times that height of that pyramid.
All the way in Mexico. So showing a connection between this distance and the height.
Yeah, the same thing
Pyramid of the Sun
coming up. The same kind of figures and numbers, they keep coming up and then correlate. So I discovered that distance is very significant in other ways, which we're going to get onto now.
Okay, so let's talk about this first. First of all, tell everybody what is precession and what do we have going on here?
Anyone who is interested in the Giza Plateau pyramids will perhaps know about precession because it was an integral part of Robert Bowell's Orion correlation, which a lot of people know. So they would, and also Graham Hancock, he mentioned precession in his book, Into the Gods. So people became familiar with it. But it is, in the general population, it's a rarely known phenomenon. And precession is the Earth's axis. It's the Earth's axis is tilted at 23.5 degrees in respect to the ecliptic plane. And as the Earth moves around the sun, goes this way and that way, and it carves out this kind of, or it traces this abstract circle in the sky, 360-degree circle, which is a cycle of 25772 years, okay, according to the scientific estimate. But the ancients, they gave the figure of 25920 years.
Okay.
If that number reduces down to 9, it's easier to remember, it's easier to encode. That number and all its subdivisions will reduce down to the number 9.
Okay.
So, yeah, and 25920 was their estimate, the canonical estimate.
Okay. Do you want to show that on the next slide?
Yeah, I just wanted to say a bit more about precession. Okay. It's the sun and moon, and the gravity of the sun and moon that exert influence on the Earth. And it's really caused the Earth to bulge at the equator. It's flattened. It's like they're stepping on a ball, and the ball is slightly. And I think it's 0.3% of the, if you was to measure along the polar, around the polar equator, it'd be about 0.3% smaller than the equator, than around the equator. And yeah, so when it makes the Earth bulge at the equator, and as the Earth orbits the sun, it's tracing out, it's wobbling, and it's tracing out this circle in the sky, which takes 25, which the ancients said was 25,920 years to complete. And as it goes through that cycle, the axis points to different pole stars. And at the moment, it's pointing to Polaris. Back in the time when they say the pyramids would be, it was targeting the star Buban in Draco. So, yeah, that's just giving you an outline of what precession.
And is it also true as the Earth is doing this precessional wobble, which takes 25,920 years roughly, it's pointing to different constellations?
Yeah.
And that's where we come up with our zodiac as well.
Yeah, the zodiac ages, because that's why we have these zodiac ages and kind of 2,160 years.
Which is just 25,920 divided by 12, because we have 12 zodiac signs.
Yeah. In our annual cycle, it's going through the zodiac in a anti-clockwise way direction. But with precession, it's precessing. That's where the word comes from. It's the axis is precessing. It's going backwards. And so it goes clockwise. It goes clockwise through the zodiac signs. And it takes 2,160 years each, the duration of each zodiac.
Okay. All right. Do you want to go to the next slide and show?
Well, it's difficult. It's difficult to convey all this.
Oh, yeah, you're doing a great job explaining.
It's the top of your head anyway.
Yeah. Precession, people that are watching this, that are familiar with your work and familiar with Giza, will understand what precession is.
Yeah, sure. That's right.
But let's talk about how it breaks down here into different factors. So we've got 25,920 years, which is the standard number people use for precession, and it's clearly encoded into many ancient sites. And it has digit sums. All these different factors of it have digit sums of 9, which means you take all the digits within the number, add them up, and you get 9, right? So if you take 25,920, 2 plus 5 plus 9 plus 2 equals 18, 1 plus 8 equals 9. Same thing do with all these different divisions of the precessional numbers, right?
That's the reason why the ancients used the figure of 25,920 years precessional cycle, because you could reduce all these to 9, all these numbers. As I said, it's easier to remember, easier to encode.
Right.
And all these other numbers are all subdivisions of that 25,920 years cycle. And all these numbers in bold are all these subdivisions.
And do we find that there's certain chunks of, like, certain of these divisions, they're considered like different seasons within a great year? So a great year would be 25,920 years. And then we have, and then they have different sort of chunks of time that they call different things that were divisions of this number.
That's right. And penultimate number of precession is 72, the one at the bottom. Because in a 360-degree cycle, the sun takes 72 years to move just 1 degree in that 360-degree sign. And so 72 years
Is 1 degree of precession out of 360 degrees.
yeah.
Okay.
No, I'm going to say that some of these numbers are actually encoded in ancient temples, and especially at Giza, in the measured distances between the pyramids and that, and mostly at these processional numbers, which are also multiples of pi and multiples of phi squared. But
We'll get on to that. I do want to just go back here. We took a little detour here into precession, but I just want to bring people back to this. This is the distance from the Giza coordinates that were given in the binary code, and the distance to this point that you have identified here in the Sphinx is 658.368 meters.
Yeah.
Now, let's see what you did when you converted this into inches, feet, and yards. So let's see what we get here. So tell me what's going on.
So that distance I discovered, it must have been intentional, because when you convert that meter distance into British imperial measures, feet, inches, and yards, they come out of Procession, which I had showed, which was in the previous slide. So what it is, you've got 658.368 meters is 2160 feet. It's also 25920 inches, and it's 720 yards. Okay.
All
so
division.
3 processional numbers in one distance. Okay, so just go back to the other slide. So you can see these numbers here.
Yep.
So you've got 2160.
Yep.
You've got 25920.
Yep.
You've got 720, which is 10 times 72 anyway.
Yep.
So you've got 3 processional numbers.
So 3 processional numbers. What is the statistical likelihood that some random nondescript location given in a binary code to Jim Penniston back in 1980, and then using your sort of intuitive geometry and mathematics to locate the position that it's pointing to, would come up with those 3 numbers? There's no way that would happen, right? That's very unlikely. So that's like a nod.
Yeah, it shows intent and deliberation on behalf of whoever devised the code. Rendlesham.
Yeah, I'm just going to tell the audience this right now. The first time you showed me this back, I think it was December or January, that kind of blew my mind. I was like, okay, this guy's onto something here. This is blow
your mind.
Yeah, this is just the tip of the iceberg, right? There's so much more going on here that you found, but when you showed me that, I was like, okay, I think this guy's onto something here. This is wild stuff. Okay, let's keep moving forward.
Okay, so if you could just read this out, because
I'll read it out.
Classes it and read it properly.
Referencing 3 precession numbers in one distance using British imperial feet, inches, and yards is a very clever way in also providing verification that this connection with the Sphinx was intentional and deliberate. All one has to do is simply multiply the feet distance 2,160 by 12 to get 25,920 in inches, and then divide 2,160 feet by 3 to get 720 in yards. This simply doesn't work with other measuring systems. For example, if we were to take the meter distance of 658.386 and multiply it by 12, the distance would be lengthened to longer than 7,906.032 meters. And if we were to divide 658.386 meters by 3, the distance would be reduced to a shorter 219.462 meters. Once converted from meters to the British imperial system of feet, inches, and yards, then multiplying the feet distance of 2,160 by 12 and dividing it by 3 produces the same additional processional numbers, but doesn't alter the length of the distance. A distance that measured just one processional number, like 2,160 in meters, say, would be considered a coincidence. But in this ingenious method of using a meter distance that, when converted to British imperial feet, inches, and yards, produces 3 different processional numbers, could only have been intended by the originators of the code. So that kind of hammers that down.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good.
All right. Okay. So after you did that, then you're like, what I'm assuming you said, let's just measure some of these other draft lines that we've constructed here.
Yeah, I rarely leave any stone unturned. So I try and look at everything I can. I analyze everything I can. So I thought the next thing, well, let's measure these lines. Let's measure that abstract line A.
Okay. And so you get 329.682 meters.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you employ the same system of converting this to inches, feet, and yards.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, what are you getting here? Very close numbers.
They're almost close to the processional numbers of 1080, 12,960, and 360 is a processional number anyway. That's half of 720.
But that's what's interesting here is these are close to half of the other numbers.
Yes. Very
Right.
close. And then you think to yourself, wait a minute, those pyramids have been constructed and positioned by whoever constructed Giza, and we think it's the ancient Egyptians. And you think, well, they wouldn't have, if it was the ancient Egyptians, they wouldn't have known about feet, inches, and yards. So if they're close enough to make the impression that they did know. So then I thought, oh, that's quite good. I like that. Let's look at the other line between the pyramids.
Okay. So then you measured this one, which was the other draft line, and that's 329.207 meters.
I remember that these lines are part of that kind of crosshair target. You find the center point between the pyramids.
Right.
Yeah. So I found that distance there on this line is 329.207 meters.
Okay. And so then you employed the same thing and you converted them to inches, feet, yards.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, these ones are even closer.
Even closer.
Okay.
So you've got the numbers there. You've got 180, you've got 12,960. Okay, it could be almost 12,961. You've got 12,960 before the decimal point, which
right.
And you've got 360, which is half
right.
20, of the.
So these are the half of the other numbers. So the chances of this coming out like this are almost zero, right? There's no way this happens. So this is almost like a nod to say, hey, look, you're on the right track here.
Yeah.
There's something going on. Okay.
Yeah, it's as if the intelligence that devised the code wanted us to find those distances, those lines between the pyramids. Okay. Now they're approximate. They're not exact. Okay. But they're not exactly at the processional numbers that we want to see. But the intelligence behind the code made sure we would recognize those numbers. We would find them credible. Okay. Because when we look at what they did with the Giza coordinates, we're going to get onto the Giza Diagonal now anyway. So what's the next one?
So let's go into part 2 here. Let's talk about what the Giza Diagonal is. So why don't you explain to everybody a little bit about this?
Yeah. People realize the way the pyramids, the configuration of the pyramids in this diagonal positioning, they realize the southeast corners of the pyramids are aligned to this abstract line, which is called the Giza Diagonal. Okay. It goes from the subsidiary pyramid below, G3A, the center of that pyramid, to the center, G1A, next to the Great Pyramid.
Okay.
So that's the range of the line. Okay.
Okay.
And it was named after, it was the Lena Gerdich line. Hans Gerdich and Mark Lena, both Egyptologists, who discovered this line. They brought it to public attention. And they call it the Giza Diagonal, the Lennon-Gerdich line, or Pyramid Diagonal. Okay. And the theory that Mark Lena came up with was that line, if you was to follow that line northeast, it would lead all the way to the ancient city of Heliopolis, which is one of the most sacred cities in ancient Egypt.
So is that this right here?
The first ever city in ancient Egypt.
Okay.
Yeah, the thing is that line, the whole line, it doesn't, when you follow that whole line, it doesn't go to Heliopolis, all right? But if you begin the line from the southeast corner of G2 and you go to the southeast corner of G1, you pass through the southeast corner of G1 and then you follow that line, it does go all the way to Heliopolis and to the obelisk there, which is a land site.
Okay.
Heliopolis.
So maybe we should just go back here real quick and explain to everybody how G2 is offset slightly from there. And
That's kind of related to the three belt stars of Orion. It's a kind of offset.
Because the middle star is a little bit offset.
Yeah, with Scott Crane and I, when we wrote the book Giza Prophecy, we delve into that anyway. We show how G2, reason why G2 is offset a little bit. Yeah. So Robert Bovell said, no, the line doesn't go to Heliopolis. It does go to Heliopolis if you start the line from the southeast corner of G2.
If you start from here, it does go.
Yeah. But clearly the line begins from the subsidiary pyramid next to G3, G3A. So that is the line.
Okay.
And when you look, yeah.
Go here.
This is a strange thing. I put this slide in here just to show. It's weird that if you take that line from the southeast corner of G3 to the southeast corner of G1, it's 930 meters. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. And if you take that line from the southeast corner of G2 to the southeast corner of G1, it's 930 raw cubits. So there's this apple and oranges thing with raw cubits and meters. And this comes up quite a lot of Giza. People don't really realize the meters and raw cubits are related.
That's a whole other conversation.
It's a whole, yeah.
We'll have to save that for another time because that's a really interesting conversation in itself, but we'll press on.
I discovered here with these distances, which are the same actually, but in meters and cubits. No one knows about that. No, I haven't seen that anywhere. I haven't discovered that yet.
And so this is an interesting thing that happens. Can you want to explain to everybody what this is going on here?
Yeah, so the Giza Diagonal doesn't start the southeast corner of G2. It clearly starts the subsidiary pyramid G3A. And you know that because the actual Giza Diagonal comes alive during the winter solstice by the shadows cast by the sun on that day, which clearly defines the line, Giza Diagonal, which goes, you can see that these shadows, if they just wanted to show a line that started from the southeast corner of G2, so that they would have just allowed those pyramids to express that line. You see the shadows of all three pyramids there define that line. It comes alive on the winter solstice. So that line, so it's as if whoever created the pyramids, whoever constructed the pyramids and designed the Giza Plateau, is as if they constructed the pyramids around that line. Okay. Which is what I found.
Okay.
And for a good reason.
Okay. So now we have another close-up version of the Giza coordinates, right? And now you've drawn a line here. So you've got a latitude line here going directly over to the Giza Diagonal. And what did you notice about that distance there?
I'll get onto the distance in a moment, but that line is perfectly horizontal, 90 degrees. So this is not a coincidence. It's as if they chose those Giza coordinates so that it would be at that distance from the Giza Diagonal. They're bringing our attention to the Giza Diagonal.
Okay.
They're doing it in such a way that the distance is significant. And of course, this is what I was talking about earlier when I said that intelligence behind the code, where those two abstract lines, abstract line A and abstract line B, were nearly at those precessional numbers, they showed, okay, you found that. Now look at this. We're going to give you the exact distance.
Okay.
Which will generate those three precessional numbers. And this is what it is.
Okay. So in that distance is
329.184 meters.
And exactly 329.184 meters gives rise exactly to the precessional numbers. So the first two draft lines were getting close.
Yeah.
Then they throw you this intelligence just says, okay, you're on the right track. Now let's slam dunk it home.
Yeah.
And here you go. You have the exact precession numbers, 1080, 12960, 360 on the nose.
Yeah, killing two birds with one stone. It's like they're pointing to they're bringing our attention to the Giza Diagonal, but in such a way where you just can't dismiss this as a coincidence. Those numbers come up.
Yeah. And again, I think when you showed me this one, I was just like, all right, really, again, this is This is wild stuff.
It certainly is, yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's also important just to I don't think we could overstate this enough. You're using the most precise calculators
Yeah.
and tools at our
Conscientiousness.
at your
Yeah.
disposal to get these location coordinates, and then using
These
just a
distances,
calculator.
yeah.
So, and that measures it to within millimeters, you said, correct?
In meters first, and then you find out meter distance first to 3%.
But I'm talking about the calculator and the accuracy of this does it to within millimeters, correct?
Yeah, half a millimeter, that Vincenzi distance.
Right. So that's how accurate it is. And then, of course,
Yeah.
there you go. You get your 3 precessional numbers again, which is wild.
Right.
Okay.
Anyone can follow what I've done. All this is repeatable. They can follow what I've done and they'll come to the same result. They'll know that I haven't just made all this up. This is something. Each step of the way is all in logical steps. And I've followed exactly what I'm sure was intended. So the next slide. Yeah.
Okay.
There's that distance. Okay. And you could just read out the bottom part there.
So the intelligence behind the Rendlesham binary code message left us in no doubt about the processional number inferences given in the approximate British Imperial measured distances of the 2 abstract lines, A and B. So that's the 2 draft lines you drew up there, which connect the G1 and G2 pyramids. This same intelligence made certain that we would discover the distance of exactly 1,080 feet, 12,960 inches, and 360 yards between the Giza coordinates found in the code and the Giza Diagonal, which the originators of the code are bringing to our attention.
Yeah.
So
it makes sense, doesn't
it? Makes a lot of logical sense that if you're going to put a nondescript location down there, that this would all work out.
Yeah, they're all data points. So it's leading us to conclusions. But it shows all this was intentional. Okay.
Okay.
Next slide is a good one because it shows that short distance, that shorter distance is actually exactly half the length of that line between the Giza coordinates and the Sphinx. 2160, half of 2160 is 1080. Right. Half of 25,920 is 12,960. And half of 720 is 360.
That's crazy.
Now, in future sessions that we're going to do, we'll find that what the Giza coordinates are pointing out about the Giza Diagonal is that we can determine specific dates on that time. It's a timeline. We can determine specific dates on the Giza Diagonal. Okay? It's a processional timeline. I didn't mention that before, but
we'll get to that.
But that's what it's leading, no?
That's what we're getting to, yeah.
And then when you find that out, then there's lots of other things that you find out, and you realize this has all been to a plan. It's all been designed to give, to really pull out the information about Giza that we should know by now. Isn't
right.
It? This intelligence realizing
us
that we hadn't found out everything we need to find out about Giza. What was encoded there? And it's like this code was given to Penniston, and it was given to him on Boxing Day, 1980. It's like a Christmas gift to bring us this information about Giza, to open up all this information about Giza that we should know by now.
Do you want to bring to people's attention the idea that the tools available to confirm all of this weren't available in 1980 to get it to zigzag? Do you want to talk about that?
This is the other kind of fact that shows that this code is a time anon, because as we know, Jim Penniston received that code in 1980. I had to what? Yeah, it's 30 years. He's saying it for 30 years. This is one of the things that they always ask. And they always think this question will just completely dismiss the code as being credible. Why did Jim sit on the code for 30 years before he announced the existence of it? And the thing is that if he'd have come out with it then and people started to try to decode it, they wouldn't have had the tools that you need to decipher this, weren't available then. And it was in 2018, I was able to get hold of all the tools, programs, calculators survey maps, everything, to be able to decipher the code. So it's like 38 years it had to take for me to be able to decipher. So that's the reason why Jim sat on it for 30 years. He didn't know that, of course. It's like a subliminal kind of, I don't know, as if he was being manipulated in some ways by the intelligence devised the code, as if they got him to wait for 30 years.
Yeah. And I think I want to say something real quick, that you've made this very logical. People can follow your work, and I'm not saying this is easy, what we've just presented here, but you making it look easy. And I know that doing all of this work, this is not easy. This is insanely difficult to figure all this out. And it takes a certain kind of a person with the right kind of mind, the determination, and the passion to discover things. And I don't know if whoever devised the code knew that somehow you would be involved, but if it wasn't you, it was going to have to be somebody like you to do this, because this is insanely difficult to figure out.
Yeah. I think the code fell into my lap deliberately by whoever devised the code. They must have made sure that it fell in my lap, because of the way I approached my research, the way I approached, and also my analytical kind of critical thinking skills. I know I am. And I'm all these personality types. They talk about 16 personality types, which Jung defined. And I'm an INTJ, which means I'm very analytical. And I won't leave any stone unturned. And I'm always curious about things. So it's the approach I personally probably, it maybe is the guide. And that's not bragging or anything. And I'm a very humble guy. It's just that's can only come to that conclusion after having worked on this.
Yeah, I imagine when you're dealing with something as complex and enigmatic as the Giza Plateau, and then you start working with this code, and all they've given you is just one nondescript location on the Giza Plateau, just one point, and can you figure something out based on this nondescript location? And it's amazing what you have derived out of that when they just gave you one little location. I feel like most people would look at that and be like, I don't know. What is that? I don't know. Maybe there's something buried there. Let's go dig under there. Maybe there's something there. Let's use ground penetrating radar. And then you find out that maybe there's something there. I'm sure there's things all over that plateau that are buried and there's caverns and passageways, but it takes somebody who thinks a little bit differently to start making connections like that. And
yeah,
this has been another really good one, Gary.
There's a few things I would just want to say.
Say it.
Yeah, I'm just saying this code is mathematical and geometric, and it has to, because you can't refute math. 2 + 2 = 4 is a fact you cannot deny. Okay, you can't get around it and try and change it. You can't. It's just a fact. And so this is the reason why they use mathematics. This intelligence, they're using a code that's based on mathematics, because it's the only way you can really prove the things that it's showing us through mathematics. And you've had Jimmy Blanchett on, and I've been collaborating with Jimmy Blanchett, and of course, what he's been by is all mathematical as well. So this intelligence is showing proof of the phenomenon. And really, this code is showing a demonstration in retrocausality. Yeah. Information being back to the past that has some kind of effect on the present and the future. So, yeah, I think that they sent that information back to kind of change the impetus, change our reality in a way. No, I think this code was devised by some sort of, not by extraterrestrials, but by a future. It's like what Jackson Farley, the physicist Jackson Farley said. He said it's most likely the whole phenomenon is most likely related to post-human AI hybrids. Future. And when you look at our technology and our advancing exponential rate, that it's logical that you think in the future that our technology would be so advanced we might be able to break the time barrier. And this code was probably created by some sort of sophisticated quantum computer from the future, Because Manu says so. He also collaborated with me on the code. Yeah, Manu.
Under the Sphinx.
Under the Sphinx. Yeah. And the code actually points to things that are in this book, which it shows it's a time anomaly again, because it's pointing to things that only would come up in the future. And he said to me that it does look like this code has been created by a sophisticated kind of quantum computer, and it can only be from the future. Because our quantum computers at the moment are not sophisticated enough to done this vast. The information that's come out of this code could fill 3 volumes.
And I know there's so much more to cover, and we are going to cover more of your work. But I think for learning's sake and for the audience sake, giving it in little chunks like this is really beneficial. And I know you did this for me when we started talking, and you started bringing me along slowly. And I'm grateful for that, because there is a lot of information that comes out of here. And if you give it all at once, it's almost like drinking from a fire. It's so out of control.
I think the way we're progressing with this, what we're doing, is the right way it should be communicated, bit by bit. Probably several interviews doing this. It's just try and cover most of the things that are in the code. But there's such a lot. And as I said, I'm still working on the book to try and complete it all. And you know what? I know I feel I have a duty to share all this. I could have kept it to myself. And there were times when I thought, I'm just going to keep it to myself. I had enough of people dismissing the code. And whenever I tried to communicate what I found, they're not getting it. Yeah. Because it's mathematics. And a lot of people feel intimidated by math. Ever since we were at school, when we were kids, a lot of people find they're intimidated by mathematics. And whenever anyone talks about numbers, like, oh, they put a wall up straight away, and it's like, resist it. So there's that hurdle to try and get over. And I have actually got so frustrated that I felt like I need to just pull away.
I'm glad that you're still working on it, because I think you have a lot more work to do. This stuff is utterly mind-blowing. It's fun. I think this is how you boost STEM in young people, get them interested in math and science and engineering and technology. These are the types of conversations that I want to have on the podcast, because I think this is how you get people excited about mathematics, because it's what you're discovering here takes a certain kind of mind. And my fear is that we're losing that we're not cultivating our talent enough in the United States. And I think these types of conversations help to spark that along. So I really want to thank you for all of your work, everything you've done. I think everybody should go read book 1 of the Rendlesham Enigma and read the Giza Prophecy. That ties into what we're talking about here. And stay tuned for the next one. It's going to be more mind-blowing stuff.
Thank you, Matt. It's been a pleasure. It's been really good.
All right. Cheers, everybody. Thank you.